Hey kids, Mr. Fly here, hope you're well. Now, if you're interested in the Suzuki Katana, you're going to want to stick around and stay tuned because this is going to be my in-depth review. Okay, the Suzuki Katana then, what's that all about? Well, I've been riding this bike now for a couple of weeks and I've been riding the pants of it, so trying to get to know the bike as well as I possibly can in that time. I've ridden it on all sorts of different roads and in all sorts of conditions and scenarios, and I'm going to be showing you those video clips in a minute. I'm also going to be sharing with you the lessons I've learned, not just the good things, but the bad things as well. And then towards the end of the video, I'm going to give you my calculations for how much one of these costs to own. So I've done some cost of ownership calculations as well. After all that, I'll give you my summary of the bike. So if you're interested in the Suzuki Katana, stick around, stay tuned. This is my in-depth review.
So the Katana in the wet then, what's that like? Well, it's pretty wet under tyre today. It's not actually raining at the moment, it's just sort of drizzling, I suppose. It has been raining all night, so there's a lot of spray and water on the roads, as you can see. And how's the bike feel? Well, she feels okay. I don't feel overly confident, I don't know why. It's just something to do with me. The way it goes round the corners, it sort of tips in a little bit, which I'm not too keen on. It may be that these tyres are perhaps a little bit worn on this particular model, so don't take too much play on that, but that just leaves me lacking a little bit of confidence. The tyres fitted to this particular bike are Dunlop Road Smart 2s. They're not tyres I actually have any knowledge of, to be honest, but Dunlop, of course, one of the top brands. So it's not like they're unknown, but as I say, I'm not feeling hugely confident. I don't know why. I haven't had any bad situations on it since I've been riding in the wet. Maybe it's just a matter of getting used to it. All that said, of course, from a technological point of view, the bike does have the technology to help you. It's got traction control, which is switchable, 4-level switchable if you include off, which is nice to have on these sort of damp, slippery days, particularly when there are a few autumn leaves starting to fall, as there are here. And of course the bike has ABS, so any panic braking shouldn't mean you skid off. The technology is there to help you, but as always, of course, eventually physics comes into play, so you just have to ride a bit more carefully in the wet, don't you? Not a great deal of weather protection on the Katana, of course, it being basically a naked bike. It does quite a good job of keeping the wind off you, but there's no screen or frontal area here. The front here seems very low down, so you are getting the full amount of weather at you. If it was driving with the rain at the moment rather than just this drizzle, I'll be getting that at me, but of course you expect that with a naked bike, so no surprises there. So overall, riding in the rain or in the wet, it's fine. It's got the technology to help you, but I might consider changing those tyres for something different, or maybe just a new set of these particular tyres. Diesel on the road there, don't like the look of that. Lots of diesel on the road, or oil or something. Yuck. Yeah, it stinks. That's not going to help any bike. Let me just pull over here for a moment. I'll just show you something else actually about the bike, because I have been riding this quite a bit in the wet. Not today particularly, but since I've had the bike. Not a great place to stop, but I'm only going to be very quick. Let me just show you the back of the bike. It does throw an awful lot of crud over itself. It's got this little almost GS-esque number plate mount and sort of mudguard bit, but it doesn't do a great job. As you can see, it's absolutely covered in filth under there, so big cleaning job on my hands shortly. Actually, once you get going on these more twisty ones, a little bit of gravel there, gravel and wet, not a good combo. Maybe it's just the tyres need to warm up a little bit. I'm feeling a little bit more confident on them now. Again, you can't go nuts in the wet, but the engine note on the Katana is so addictive, you can't help but wind her up a little bit. It's still great fun, even in the wet. So how about the urban environment? What's the Katana like around town? Well, the first thing I would say is the bike does feel quite nice and light when you're on it. So manoeuvring around traffic isn't a problem at all. I get my feet flat on the deck pretty much. Well, balls for my feet anyway. So yeah, nothing intimidating about riding it. So filtering piece of cake on here. I'd say it'd make a pretty good commuter machine. Sat nice and upright, nice and tall, you can see through traffic, you can work out where you're going to go. I have to say, for me at slow speeds I find the fueling absolutely fine. Some of the earlier reviews I read of the Katana said that it wasn't so good at slow speed in traffic and was a bit jerky, but actually I found it fine. I think this 4-cylinder engine is sweet as a nut, and slow speed riding through town hasn't been a problem at all. So for me, the Katana in the urban environment, big thumbs up. So what's the Katana like to ride at night then? Well, before we use the magic of movies to move to night time, let me just show you what the lights are like anyway. Sort of daylight running, if you like. Let me just stop the bike and show you what they're like. Neutral, very easy to find on this. Okay, so when you're riding it, engine's running at the moment. These are the lights that you get. And what I like about the Katana is it's got these little side lights that make it look a bit like a TIE fighter. So there we go, that's what the normal dipped beam or running lights look like. If we move it to full beam, there we go, we get both parts of the headlight switched on as you'd expect, and that's it. Alrighty then, with the magic of movies, let's make it night time. Okay, as if by magic, night time has fallen. Out on the Katana now in the dark. How does the bike fare? Well, pretty good actually. The headlight seems quite nice. Unfortunately I've got a car in front of me, so I have to try the full beam when I turn off in a minute, but plenty of spread on the front light, which I like. The display at night, no changes there of course, because it's already white on black anyway, so it's just as clear to read, no problem there. Although the display itself is a bit busy, but that's a different issue. It's absolutely fine as far as night time is concerned. The switch gear on the Suzuki isn't backlit at all, but to be honest, it's so simple, the switch gear on here, it doesn't need to be. But it's just one of those things. Some of the bike manufacturers are starting to do that now, notably KTM and Triumph now are doing it as well on the newer bikes. I guess it's just a matter of time before they all do. If we go to full beam, you flick the left hand trigger switch to the front to go to full beam, and as you'd expect, the light gets further and wider. As ever, the GoPro won't be doing a good job of showing you that, but yeah, the light on here is absolutely fine. I don't think it's actually an LED rather light. For my liking, it could be set a little bit further forward. It's not throwing out a lot of light way in the distance as you'd expect a full beam to do, but it's adequate. So you want to be hacking down these back lanes because you've not got a lot of forward visibility, so it's sort of again a thumbs level for riding at night on the Katana. The lights are okay, not the best ever though. So something the Katana owner will get very used to is filling the bike up. Because it's got this small 12-litre fuel tank, it does mean you're forever going to the fuel station. Unfortunately I've got the other camera mounted on the instrument display at the moment, but just around the corner here you might be able to see that I've got the flashing fuel pump and I'm on empty, so I'm going to just nip up to the garage up here, my nearest one, and just see if there's any surprisings filling the bike up. Right, let's pop in here for some motion lotion then, not to kill anybody on the way. Glad to say the Katana isn't keyless or any of that nonsense, so it's just a matter of using the ignition key. Standard sort of flap arrangement, very easy to open, nothing difficult about that. Right, I'll get it filled up and then we'll see how the fuel gauge behaves. But before anyone says anything, I will go and pay first. Right, there we go, brim full. And from a flashing fuel gauge it's taken 9.5 litres, so you know, I've got 2.5 already in there, or still in there theoretically. Right, I'll go and pay it and then we'll see how the fuel gauge behaves. Right, one of my little pet hates with some bikes is when the fuel gauge doesn't recognise that you've filled the bike up. However, turn the ignition on, look, and it's immediately gone to full without even moving, so no problems with this bike on that. Holy cow, it's busy out here today. Alrighty, so as I say, something the Katana owner will have to be getting used to. Filling up is quite a frequent thing with the small fuel tank. I'm getting about 90 miles per fill out of the bike, and I haven't been sparing the horses, mind you. No doubt you could squeeze a bit more, and as you saw, even when the bike's saying that it's empty, there was still 2 and a bit litres in there. So no big surprises at the fuel station then.
Okay, at the start of the video, I promised you that I'd go through my calculations for cost of ownership of one of these bikes. So as ever, I've written down the costs associated with keeping one of these in your garage in a roadworthy condition. This doesn't include things like consumables, so tyres and brake pads. At some point, you're going to need them. But what I've done here is look at things like road tax, insurance, etc. So let's go through those quickly. Road tax for this, or what we should call it, is road fund licence, I believe, is £91 here in the UK if you pay in one lump sum. Costs a little bit more if you pay monthly for some reason, but £91 per year for this because it's over 650cc. Insurance, I got myself a quote for insurance, and I have to say this was very good, at £117.67 with a £300 excess, and that was for somebody in my position. So if you live in my house, the my no claims bonus, my age, etc., then £117.67, one of the cheaper bikes that I've got one of these quotes for. And then servicing, I went to my friends at Daytona Motorcycles in Ruislip, one of the local Suzuki dealers, and asked how much one of these costs to service. Now, they said in their case they would do the 600 mile run-in service. That would cost around about £100 for one of these. And then the service intervals are every £7,500. Miles rather. The first service then at 7,500, which includes spark plugs, would be around about £200. Then, of course, the next service would be at 15,000. That's quite a big one because that needs coolant, valve clearance is checked, spark plugs, oil and filter. That one would be around about £350 if you went to Daytona Motorcycles over in Ruislip. And then again, it's every 7,500 miles after that. So for the purpose of this calculation, if you're going to ride the bike for 5,000 miles in your first year, what you're going to have to pay then is £91 road tax, £117.67 insurance, and £100-ish for the running in checks. Comes to a total of £308.67 per annum, or £25.72 a month. Now that is an absolute bargain. 25 quid, you have one of these in your garage ready to ride. One of the cheapest bikes that actually I've done this calculation for, and I've done a number of these videos now and this calculation a number of times. So cost of ownership on the Katana, pretty low, I reckon.
So what's the Katana like on faster roads, motorways, that sort of thing? Well, here I am on the M40, and of course the bike has absolutely loads of power. So keeping up with the traffic is never an issue. There's always loads more power if you want to overtake as well. Here I am doing an indicated 76, and well, absolutely got loads of power if I want to squirt by this disco at any moment. In terms of weather protection, well, of course, it's a naked bike, so at the top there is no wind protection, although I'm in completely clean air, I have to say. It's not unpleasant at all. It doesn't feel like I'm really being forced back. And on the lower half of my body, come on in car if you want to, on the lower half, because it's got this quite big frontal area, I'm quite well protected actually. So in fact, doing longer stints on the motorway I don't think would be a problem. So can't really see any downsides on faster roads on the bike. I'm quite surprised how little wind buffeting there is, and it's not at all fatiguing for a naked bike. Some you really have to hang on to, but you know, I'm doing top speeds here, or top legal speeds, and you know, I'm not finding I'm having to fight anything. So yeah, big thumbs up for faster roads on the Katana, better than I thought.
Okay, so before I crack on and clean this puppy, I thought it was just worth showing you some of the parts on the bike that it sort of throws the crud on itself. So it's the usual suspects. First part is round the front, of course. Just down here, you can see, you know, the front forks, and underneath here, the radiator, underneath here, exactly the parts that you'd expect to get cruddy. But perhaps the more cruddier part is the back. Again, you'd expect this. It's got this weird little mudguard type thing on here, but it's not that effective, as you can see, because if you look under here at the hugger, it's absolutely covered in crud, as is underneath there generally. Alright, so no surprises there, I guess, but I'll get the cleaning kit out, I'll give her a wash and see how she comes out. Actually, in this case, because the bike's only lightly soiled, I'm not going to give it a complete major clean like I'd normally do. I'm just going to use this stuff. This is S-Doc Total Cleaner, which I've started using this year. It's great stuff. You wash it, you basically spray it on dry, and it'll get rid of all this mud without any agitation. It's incredible. So I'm going to spray this on, I'll leave it for 10 minutes and then rinse it off, and the bike will basically be clean. That's the theory anyway. So there we go, one clean bike. I'd put that probably in the easier category to clean. Actually, there's quite a lot of covers around the engine and stuff, quite a lot of plastics and metal covering up the hard to reach part. So actually it wasn't too bad. It was just that bit, you know, around the back mudguard and around the forks that were dirty, but the S-Doc took care of that. Bit of a dry with the dryer, and all is good to go. Looks lovely again. So yeah, an easier bike to clean, I'd say. Thumbs up on that. Okay, so to some practical items to do with the Katana then. Often on these videos people ask me certain things that you know, just that you might not see it elsewhere covered. So what's it like to live with it from a practical point of view? First thing, how do you check the oil? Some people say, is it a dipstick or is it a inspection glass, that sort of thing? Well, if we look down here on the Katana, it's actually an inspection glass. So it's on the side stand at the moment, but so no need to mess about with a dipstick, which is great news. The other thing that people often ask is, what about lubing the chain? Well, on the Katana, it's actually quite tricky to lube, because if you look at it around here, I haven't got much room here, but this big bit of plastic here that holds the this sort of number plate hanger on actually covers up where you get at the chain quite a bit, so it's actually quite hard to get at the chain to lube it. You can get it down the bottom there, of course, and of course there isn't a centre stand either, so you're going to have to move the bike forward and back to actually lube it. So lubing the chain, bit of a pain on here. Then the other thing that people ask me is about the pumping the tyres up. Does it have the right angle valves? Well, on this one, I'm afraid it doesn't. If we look there, look on the front wheel, the valve is the straight up type, and it's right under the brake discs, obviously, one either side. Really hard to get at to pump that up. So from a practical point of view, a bit of a nuisance to live with. The other thing that people ask me is the how about getting your feet on the floor? What's that like? Well, I took the bike outside earlier, just a little look at this clip here. You can see that I can get my feet flat on the deck. I'm only 5'8" with a 32-inch leg, but it's absolutely very, very easy to get your feet on the floor, so no problem there. And then the other thing that people often ask me is, what's the horn like? So difficult to demonstrate that on the sort of lapel mic, but let me just turn the bike on and I'll give you a quick blast of the horn. Okay, here we go. Oh, quite loud. So quite high pitched, as you heard, but take my word for it, quite loud. All right, there we go. That's some of the practical items to do with the bike.
Okay, as this is an in-depth review and I want to talk about what the bike is like to live with, we'll head up to my favourite train car park of choice here at Great Missenden Station and do my lugging about test. So let's see how easy the bike is to move around, to simulate what it's like if you're moving it around on your driveway. And also have a look at what the turning circle's like. If I can find a couple of parking spaces up here that are adjacent, it's always interesting to see how quick a bike will turn around. Alrighty, this will do nicely. Right, we'll stick her in the middle of a standard parking space, as I normally do. Let's see what she's like to find neutral. There we go, neutral's relatively easy, although it looked like I made a meal of that. Generally speaking, Suzuki's are quite good at finding neutral, I've found. Alright, okay, here we go then. No particular grab handles to grab hold of, so it's a seat job. We're in the middle of that parking spot. Let's see what the turning circle's like and how heavy she feels. So, off the stand, actually feels very light. Let's go to full lock. Round we go. Okay, it's looking to be quite a big turning circle actually. Some bikes I've done will go around in one spot. That has actually gone round, there we go, in two. I started in the middle of that one over there. Let's move out. So full lock from the middle of that one all the way around there. So quite a big turning circle, but not terrible. I've known bikes to have a wider turning circle, but very easy to move around. I have to say it feels very lightweight on the stand, so not a problem shifting it around on the driveway. So thumbs up for the Katana there. Alright, going away on the Katana and doing a tour. Could that be possible? Well, of course it's possible. You can tour any bike, but the Katana, I suppose, has got some pros and cons as far as touring is concerned. One of the downsides, no real luggage options on it, not much of a back end, so nowhere to put a top box or panniers, anything like that, so I think you can forget that. So you're going to have to rucksack up and maybe stick a tank bag on the tank to take care of your luggage. So probably not one for 2 up touring. But if you're going away solo, that's no problem at all. And I have to say, the riding position, nice and comfy. You can certainly ride on this for, you know, hours at end. It's good on the motorways as well as the back roads. Touring would be no problem. I think once you got to your destination as well, it's a great bike to chuck around the twisties. So yeah, whilst not the perfect touring machine in terms of carrying luggage, great fun when you get there and perfectly doable. So if you're going to do like, I don't know, a week or two's touring a year on your bike, then yeah, Katana certainly would be fine for that.
So I promised you the list of lessons learned about the bike, both the pros and the cons at the start of the video. So let me go through the positive points that I've noted down during the time that I've been riding the bike. And these are in no particular order, but just the things that struck me that I like about the bike. So first thing, great sound. The thing, it's a 4-cylinder bike, of course, and the thing absolutely screams. Sounds a little bit like a Formula 1 car when you ride it. I absolutely love that. So the sound was the first thing I noticed. Allied to that, the smooth 4-cylinder engine, 999cc, 150 brake horsepower. It's as smooth as you like when you wind it on. It's just beautiful. I'm used to riding in the main twin-cylinder bikes, and this 4-cylinder machine, just lovely and creamy smooth. So I love that about the bike. Next, back to basics biking in a way. This bike is not, it doesn't have masses of electronics on it. It's got the stuff that you need and the stuff that you have to get it through Euro 4, so ABS, and it's also got traction control, which is switchable. But that's about it for electronics, and I actually quite like that. You can just get on and enjoy the ride with this bike. It's kind of back to basics riding, so I like that. So that's another mark in its favour, I think. Next thing, just makes you feel good when you ride it. I mean, whenever you jump on it, that sound, the way it feels, etc., just puts a big grin on my face. And to me, that's one of the most important things about a motorcycle, is how they make you feel. So that's another thing I noted. It's really good for filtering, actually. You got, you know, it's not as, although it's quite a sort of a muscular bruising bike, it's not actually that wide, and it's quite light as well. I found that filtering on the bike, round town use, really good on this. It's a quick bike, it is a beast, it is 1000cc. When you wind it up, it is the sort of bike that wants to rip your arms off, so it's a quick machine. Noted that as a good thing. Switch gear, very tactile, easy to use. I like the switch gear on this. That was another plus point. You can feel when you actually switch things on and off, etc. And it's quite logical to use as well, not too complicated. So the switch gear I like. Little things like the mirrors work super well on here. They're a little bit ugly because they're quite big, but actually there's no vibration, there's massive view out the back. So again, just from a practical point of view, love the mirrors. Little bits and pieces on the bike, like the way they've put the Katana embellisher on the yoke, I really like. They're sort of fit and finish on these Japanese bikes is great, and this is they've just done some nice things with the Katana logos around it, so I like that. The LED lights I like on the front as well, the little side lights. It just makes the bike look sort of bruising, so that's another excellent little feature. The seat height, 825mm, so nice and low, so dead easy to get your feet on the deck. I really like that with the bike as well. It makes it non-intimidating to ride, even though it's got all that power, and it sounds and looks brutal. Actually, it's really easy to get your feet on the deck. If you're a shorty like me at 5'8" with a 32-inch leg, I can flat foot it, no problem at all. What else? Comfortable riding position with no wind buffeting. Nice and upright, you can ride it for a long time. The wind that comes off the front of the bike isn't all turbulent airflow, it's nice and smooth. It's not a fatiguing bike to ride. You can take this bike on tour, no problem at all. Things like Suzuki's easy start and low RPM assist. This bike has got that. Lots of Suzuki bikes, if not all of them, have that. So basically you touch the starter and it starts. You don't have to hold your finger on the button until it starts. If you pull away, you don't give it quite enough revs, it won't stall. It gives you a little bit of extra revs, stops you stalling. Little things like that, again, just make it an easy bike to ride and live with. It's got a 3-year warranty, which is great, and it's got a very low cost of ownership. If you saw my calculation earlier, £25 a month to keep the bike in your garage ready to ride. One of the cheapest bikes I've come across to actually keep. So lots to like about the Katana. Okay, so long list of positive things then, but no bike is perfect, is it? What about the negatives with this bike? Once again, made a list of the negatives, not so many of these. First thing I must say, and this is a big deal and probably the most serious of the negatives that I made or noted, is the size of the fuel tank on here. 12 litres is all this holds. I just think that's not quite enough. Around about 95 miles you get out of the bike before you need to fill it up. So you're going to get very used to visiting fuel stations if you're a Katana owner. Real shame that. The other bike that this is based on, the donor bike, the GSX S1000, has a 17-litre tank, which is much more like it. Obviously, the styling has meant they've probably had to reduce the actual capacity, but it's a real shame. So anyway, small tank first thing. Next thing I don't particularly like is the LCD display on this. It just looks a little bit old-fashioned, particularly when you compare it nowadays to full-colour TFTs that so many bikes have. Now, this isn't a super-duper expensive bike, but nonetheless, I do think that LCD lets it down. It looks like something of a sort of a mid-1980s stereo system you bought from Curry's. Just don't like that. I mean, it also is a little bit busy. It's got everything you need on there, but I just don't like that display, so sorry about that. It does have a fuel gauge, though, so that's a plus point. Next thing, costs. This bike actually costs £900, I believe. Yeah, £900 more than the Donor GSXS 1000, which I actually prefer the look of, by the way. And of course, that GSXS 1000 does have the bigger fuel tank, as I just said. So you're paying a premium for the Katana styling on here, but you're not really getting anything extra for it other than a smaller fuel tank. So I don't like the pricing of this very much. Next negative I've noted while we talked about it is the styling. For me, I wasn't into biking when the original Katana came out, so this sort of look at the front end doesn't really do it for me. It doesn't mean anything to me. If you were a fan of the original Katana, then this, does ape back to that pretty well. You might love the looks of it, and that's fine. So very much, an individual choice thing whether you like the styling or not. Personally, the styling doesn't quite work for me. It does look a brute, but nah, don't really. Overall, on balance, I don't like the styling of the machine. Crying out for an up and down quick shifter was another thing that I noticed on here. The engine on here screams, sounds like a Formula 1 car, all great, but there is no option for a quick shifter. You've got to do the old manual clutch thing. Some people love that, back to basics and all the rest of it, but I think this is crying out for a quick shifter, both up and down. At least as an option, I think that would be great. The electronics, as I mentioned before, I actually quite like the back to basics nature of the bike, but it is, again, for a new modern bike, it hasn't got much in the way of electronics. You can see that as a plus or minus. I think that it actually rides better than it looks. Now, am I being unkind with that? I mean, actually, although I said I don't like the styling, when you're sat on it and riding it, you're not looking at the bike. It does actually ride beautifully, so that's really a positive. So, don't let me saying I don't like the looks of it put you off. Do have a ride of one if you're at all interested in these bikes. Next one I've noted here, some vibes through the seat in third gear. Not a big deal, just something I noticed once or twice when riding it. It is a little bit vibey around the backside at certain revs, just something to be aware of. The seat, nice comfy riding position, but this seat can get a little bit hard after a couple of hours in the seat. You can feel, that you've been on a bike. So, something there that you might want to consider as well if you're thinking about touring in particular. And then the only other thing I've noted here, it being cold now when I'm recording this and during the time I've had this bike, it would have been really nice if it had heated grips, which sadly it doesn't. So that's pretty much it for the negatives. Okay, so how would I summarise my thoughts on the Suzuki Katana then? And this is just my opinion, of course. Well, I would say the bike is absolutely beautiful to ride. I've really enjoyed riding the machine. What I don't enjoy is looking at it, which is a bit of a shame. The styling for me doesn't quite do it, nor does that little fuel tank as well. I think if I had the money for a 1000cc bike of this type, I'd probably go for the Donor GSXS 1000. And save myself 900 quid in the bargain. So sorry about that, Suzuki, but for me, the Katana is still a bit of a thumbs down overall on balance. Anyway, that's just my opinion. If you're interested in the bike, I would encourage you to go and have a ride yourself. You may disagree with everything I've just said. By the way, I don't just do bike reviews here on the Mist & Fly. If you haven't seen my videos before, I do all sorts of stuff to do with motorcycles. I do monthly bike news reviews, I do live streams, I do trips and tours at home and abroad, things about maintenance, how to look after your bike, modifications, how to clean your bike, all that sort of stuff here on the Mist & Fly. If you're at all interested and you haven't done so already, it would be fantastic to have you subscribe down below, and that way I can see you on the next video. All right, that's it for now. Hope you found that of some interest. Look forward to speaking to you again soon. Until then, this has been the Mist & Fly. Cheerio.
Today's white van of choice, the Citroen Berlingo. The Enterprise version, which means it's the sort of smaller one, I think. Sort of a... is it a minivan? Would you call it that? I don't know, but anyway. Nice to see a white van on the roads. Keeping Britain's economy turning.